Hello Gemini, I am Poetic Heretic, and this is your October 2017 Tarot Forecast. Do remember, you can use these videos for your sun, rising, and moon signs. So this month I am doing a spread that has one card per week, and then the fourth card is also for the rest of the month, and then a fifth card that is summing up the whole month. So that's what we're going to do. Let's see what we get. What does the universe have in store for the sign of Gemini in October 2017? Okay, there they are. The first week, the Six of Swords. The second week, Judgment. The third week, the Three of Swords. The fourth week, the Three of Pentacles reversed. And the card summing up the entire month of October, the Ace of Cups. Alright, a very interesting mix that you guys have. Okay, let's dig into this. So, first of all, I'll say overall, I'm seeing both positives and negatives, both things to look forward to and some potential challenges. So that's where you can expect this reading to go. But now to go through week by week, we're starting with the Six of Swords for the first week of October, and this is a card of, well, it kind of has, I think, two main different sides whenever I read it. One is talking about making progress, moving forward, especially when it comes to day-to-day sort of activities and things you experience, so sharing, networking, things like that. But in another sense, but related to that, it's not just moving forward, but it's moving on. Moving on from a difficult experience perhaps, or moving on from something that you felt attached to, essentially. And in some cases, there's even a degree of sadness associated with the card, you don't want to move on. It's just too difficult, you're too rooted in the emotion of it. But the Six of Swords is saying that either it's time to move on, and so you are, or if you're hesitating to move on, it's sort of encouraging you to do so, to move forward with your life. Let's see, what else can we say about that? Well, if you're struggling to move on with something, it could be that the best thing to do is to not try so hard. I mean, this card doesn't really strike me as one of great struggle, because you see these characters getting into this boat and sort of pushing off, it looks like they're about to do. But once you're flowing in the water, that's not really a great struggle, the water is sort of taking you, the current is taking you. So my advice would be to just, if you're struggling to move on from something, to not struggle so much, but instead just sort of feel it, look right at it, sort of be at one with it, like integrate it within yourself, and move on in that way. Let's see. And on a completely different note, this Six of Swords energy can talk about sort of like scientific, technical skill and stuff like that, especially as it relates to day-to-day activities. So this could involve some kind of like technology, like a new technology you get in your life or something like that in some cases. But as I look at the other cards here, that's going to be a less likely possibility in this context. So that's the first week for you guys. For week 2 of October, we have the Judgment card. So this is destiny calling. This is a time of bringing what's hidden into the light. This is following the inner calling that you have. And so if there is something that you've been trying to move on from, this could be the time where you are indeed being called to move on from it. It's time for you to embrace your destiny and not be held down in the malaise of madness of the past. It's time for you to focus on the here and now and what it's time for you to do in your life. But that's not to say that it's all so, I don't know, ominous or whatever, because the card summing up this month is the Ace of Cups, which in this context almost seems to indicate a sort of like emotional relief or something like that, a sort of like release and letting go, a sort of catharsis, especially with the Judgment card here and its association with the planet Pluto, which seems to be coming up a lot lately, I've noticed. Pluto, which talks about all of the hidden content of the mind and stuff like that, and is associated with catharsis. So that could quite possibly be what a lot of you are seeing this month, is a sort of letting go and release. And you know, catharsis, it feels good when it happens. It's like the original thing that caused it did not feel good, but the letting go of that feels good when it happens. So that's more like what I'm seeing here. You know, it's not that it's such a struggle. It's a letting go this month. So anything else I could say about the Judgment card here for you guys? Well, just that it, let's see. Like with this other stuff we're seeing here, it could be a sort of like rising from the dead, as the literal artwork of the card indicates. You might feel that this is a transformational experience. You're being transformed by all of this. Now, week 3, we have the Three of Swords. And notice we have 2 threes in a row here, 3 of Swords, 3 of Pentacles. And so threes are communication, and they do indeed refer to your sign of Gemini. So this is like your own communicative, curious energy here. But like especially communication with the threes. But so looking at the Three of Swords specifically, this is a card in a positive sense of bravely moving forward. And so again, we have this idea of moving on, moving forward, rising from the ashes, and answering the call of your destiny, doing what you have to do. And so this third week, for a lot of you, it's like bravely moving ahead. And even there might even be like some moments, interestingly enough, where you might have to really tell it like it is, lay it on the line, speak regardless of consequences, be very upfront about something with someone. Again, the idea of communication, and especially with this Three of Pentacles reversed coming up here, this would imply like tension in communication. And so what this Three of Swords for a lot of you is saying is it may be time to really just tell it like it is, to state something very plainly, because that something needs to be said. And in other cases, again, it's this idea of having the courage to continue to move on, follow the call of your destiny, and all that. Now, in a more negative sense, however, the Three of Swords is like famous for being a card of a lot of worry and trouble and emotional difficulties, emotional pain. Even the artwork of the card is literally three swords and a heart. And so it's talking about, you know, trauma, worry, agitation, frustration, shock, upset, all of those sorts of negative emotions. However, the saving grace for you guys this month is that we have the Ace of Cups summing up the whole month. And the Ace of Cups, I mean, theoretically any card can be negative in some instances, but this card is hardly ever negative. It's exuding such positivity that I think we can sort of, by cross-referencing that or whatever, we can assume that there is a very low probability that the Three of Swords this month is going to mean a lot of pain for you guys. Instead, it's what I referred to earlier about being brave when it comes to communication, and also being brave when it comes to being able to move on with your life and move forward with your life and your destiny. It's a time to follow your destiny, as we see for Judgment in the second week. So I don't see this as anything incredibly traumatic for you guys, is what I'm trying to sort of reassure you of here. But even if it was, I'm sure that you can handle it. You know, especially with these other cards here, the Judgment card, the Ace of Cups. You can handle it, even if it is something bad, which it probably is not. So for the fourth week and the rest of the month, the Three of Pentacles reversed. Well, this is talking about collaboration issues, problems working with other people. It can also talk about work-related stresses. It can talk about a disinterest in work, like not finding work that pleases you or that fulfills you and stuff like that. With it being another 3, that makes it extra indicative of communication issues, possible communication problems, and so be on the lookout for that. But like I said earlier, I think what we're really looking at here is a significantly strong possibility of, it's not so much the communication problems as it is that you might have to really tell it like it is when it comes to something, some issue or whatever. It could even be that someone is trying to hold you back from following your destiny, from doing what you need to do, from moving on or whatever, and you kind of have to tell them like it is. You have to tell them that you're going to follow your destiny because that is what is most important for you. You have to move on. You can't remain stuck in the past. And if they don't like it, that's their problem. That's their issue. That's not your problem. Your responsibility is to follow your destiny. And if you have to tell someone straight up like that, then that could be what these cards are calling you to do. So that, I'm seeing that as, I guess, the most likely scenario based on these cards. The only other thing that I would suggest as a possibility is that this could be like, in the fourth week and rest of the month, collaboration or partnership that does not turn out well, maybe even a warning not to combine forces with someone. You know, if you're considering starting a project in the fourth week, maybe cancel that or delay that until another time perhaps, but you'll have to use your own discretion for that. So the card summing up the month is the Ace of Cups. Very interesting when this is normally such a powerful positive card, and we are seeing some stressful energy up here, but of course this is then good news, because as I said earlier, this heavily implies that this isn't so much a month about like struggle as it is about release, catharsis, about letting go, about feeling better and better, about getting more relief as you do what you need to do, as you bravely move ahead and answer the call of your destiny. It's going to feel like relief to follow that inner calling. And the Ace of Cups also has an association with love, and so that may be a factor as well. In the literal artwork of the card, it shows a hand handing you a cup, which generally implies the universe is basically handing you success. You're having success handed right to you. And when it's the Ace of Cups, it's most often in an emotional and or creative nature, like emotional success, so like in love or friendship or anything that makes you happy essentially, and also especially creative endeavors, so anything having to do with art or like a project or whatever. So in this context, it could quite possibly be that the universe is literally trying to hand success right to you, but you have to be able to move on, let go of the past, and follow the call of your destiny if you are to be able to receive that success that the universe is trying to hand right to you. But as long as you do that, I mean, what seems to be, what the cards seem to be saying here is that as long as you do that, as long as you do your part, then the universe will indeed be able to just hand that success right to you. As long as you do your part, the rest will be essentially easy, even if you might have to sort of tell someone off, or well, maybe it won't be that intense, but tell someone very plainly and very boldly whatever it is you have to tell them. Like, you have to do what you have to do, or just tell them like it is about some other issue. So that's what we're seeing here. The only other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that the Judgment card is such an interesting card because it's ruled by both the Sun and Pluto, and those are kind of like opposite energies. But the idea is that you have the Sun, which is like the light of consciousness, and then you have Pluto, which is like the darkness of the subconscious and the unconscious, the stuff you're unaware of. So it's like the light and the dark are coming into one card here, and the implication that I always see with this card is it's saying it's time to shine the light of consciousness, the Sun, on the darkness of the unconscious, which is Pluto, on all of those deep, dark issues, all of that like shadow stuff, you know, your shadow, doing the shadow work and integrating that into yourself. And that seems to be coming up for for some other people as of late, and even in the previous spreads I've done so far this month for Aries and Taurus, that kind of issue has been coming up. So it seems like a theme perhaps for people this month. But so it's like saying that's a huge part of this month as well, or quite possibly is when we get the Judgment card, it's this idea of shining the light of your consciousness onto the shadow, the dark things that maybe you don't want to face, or part of you doesn't want to face. But when you do shine the light of your consciousness on that, then you are able to reintegrate that. And with this Ace of Cups here, it's like saying that, again, that's going to feel like great relief. You're going to have a certain sense of wholeness from doing that. And, you know, that's really especially with, I guess, the way, I don't know, the state that humanity is in right now. That, I would say, is good advice for just about anyone on the planet at this time, not just people born under the sign of Gemini, but anyone. You know, shine the light of your consciousness on uh, the shadow, on those deep, dark things, because that brings them into the light and dissolves them and transmutes them and brings you great relief and helps you become more whole of a person. Um, and we're also, I guess the last thing I'll say about this, because this is going on for a bit now, but we are entering Scorpio season this month, which Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, and that time of the year and that sign is associated with exploring the deep, dark realms and stuff like that. So it's interesting that that you guys pulled this card and have this sort of energy, and that other signs seem to be as well. It looks like it's a time of digging deep into the dark, but with the light of consciousness to turn that darkness back into light. So, there you go, Gemini. I hope you enjoyed. This has been a tarot forecast for the sign of Gemini for the month of October 2017 from Poetic Heretic. Don't forget to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.